Marcus stepped off the shuttle and took a deep breath, feeling the thick, metallic scent of the spaceport fill his lungs. He had never been to this part of the galaxy before, and the sheer scale of the place was overwhelming. Ships of all shapes and sizes hovered above or rested on massive docking platforms. The ground shook faintly with the vibrations of engines starting and stopping. Aliens of different shapes, sizes, and colors moved in a constant flow around him. Some had multiple eyes, some glided above the ground, and others wore intricate clothing that seemed impossible to understand. Despite all this, Marcus felt a strange thrill in the chaos. He adjusted his tool belt and began walking toward the cargo ship that needed his attention. The ship was a mid-sized transport vessel, older than most of the ones docked here, and apparently neglected for far too long. The port officials had called him because previous maintenance teams had failed to repair its engine systems. Marcus didn't usually deal with alien technology, but he had a reputation for being able to figure things out. He liked a challenge, and this one promised to be more than just a challenge. It promised to be an adventure. As he navigated through the crowded port, Marcus noticed her. She was leaning against a crate, her hoodie pulled low over her face, making it difficult to see her features. Her frame was slender, and she carried herself in a way that suggested she was used to hard work. Her movements were careful, precise, almost mechanical. Marcus assumed she was a worker, like many of the other aliens handling cargo. Something about her presence made him pause for a moment. But he quickly brushed it off. He had more pressing matters. The ship needed his attention, and there was no time for distractions. He approached her, offering a friendly nod. "Need a hand with that?" he asked. She glanced at him briefly, her eyes barely visible under the hood, and gave a small, polite shake of the head. Marcus frowned, but stepped closer anyway. "I can help. It's no problem. You don't have to do all the lifting yourself." She didn't respond immediately. Then, with surprising speed, she lifted the crate effortlessly, carrying it several meters away and setting it down gently as if it weighed nothing at all. Marcus blinked, momentarily stunned. He had expected someone of her size to struggle with such a load. "Wow. You make that look easy," he admitted, trying to sound casual. She only gave a small nod, returning to her previous work. Marcus followed her at a respectful distance, watching her move. She seemed almost too efficient, handling tasks that looked simple with an unusual grace. Something about her was different, and he couldn't quite place it. Still, he convinced himself she was just another skilled worker. He had no reason to suspect anything else. "Hey," Marcus said after a few moments of silence. "I don't think we've met. I'm Marcus. I'm here to fix the cargo ship over there." He nodded toward the aging vessel, hoping to spark a conversation. She looked at him, her eyes finally meeting his. They were a striking shade of violet, unusual and captivating, but Marcus's attention was distracted by her calm demeanor. She tilted her head slightly, considering him before responding in a smooth voice. "I am Liara. I work here." Marcus smiled, extending his hand awkwardly. "Nice to meet you, Liara. You seem very capable." He tried to keep his tone light, but he could feel a mixture of curiosity and confusion growing inside him. Liara's gaze lingered on him for a moment, then she turned away without a word and continued her work. Marcus felt a strange urge to understand her, but the constant hum of the spaceport pulled him back to his original mission. He had work to do, and he couldn't afford to be distracted. He reached the cargo ship and began his inspection. The ship's engine core was exposed, panels removed, and wires hanging loosely. As Marcus worked, he couldn't help but glance at Liara occasionally. She moved through the port with purpose, handling cargo, talking briefly to other workers, but always maintaining an air of quiet authority. Some of the other aliens paused when she passed, bowing slightly or stepping aside. Marcus noticed, puzzled. If she were just a worker, why would they show her such respect? He shook his head, trying to focus. Maybe he was overthinking it. After all, humans often overestimated their ability to read alien cultures. He returned to the engine, checking circuits, running diagnostics, and making careful adjustments. Sweat formed on his brow under his helmet, and the hum of the engines made him tense. Something wasn't right. The systems were unstable, more so than the report had indicated. Marcus tapped on the control panel, trying to bring the readings into order, when a sudden shout echoed through the port. A shipment of volatile materials had been dropped nearby, causing a small explosion that sent crates tumbling. Alarms blared, and chaos erupted for a few seconds. Marcus froze, unsure of what to do. Liara moved instantly. She stepped forward, her movements precise and commanding. With incredible strength, she lifted falling crates, redirected dangerous cargo, and calmed panicked workers with a few sharp gestures. Marcus's jaw dropped. He had seen strong workers before, but her efficiency, her confidence, and the sheer force of her actions were something else entirely. Once the chaos settled, Marcus approached her cautiously. That was amazing," he said, trying to hide his astonishment. She simply nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You are not from here," she said quietly, almost to herself, but loud enough for him to hear. Her tone wasn't accusing. It was an observation. "No," Marcus admitted. "I'm human. Just passing through." He felt a flush of embarrassment at how obvious his words sounded. Liara studied him for a moment longer. Then, without warning, she reached up and pulled the hood from her head. Marcus blinked in disbelief. What he saw stunned him. Liara was not the ordinary worker he had assumed. Her features were sharp and regal, her skin glowing faintly under the spaceport lights, and her eyes shone with intelligence and authority. The insignia on her shoulder, hidden beneath the hoodie, marked her as someone important, someone high-ranking. Marcus's mouth went dry. He had made a huge mistake. The quiet, capable worker he had assumed he could casually talk to was, in reality, a powerful alien leader. He had no idea what this meant for him. Would she punish him, dismiss him, or worse? Liara's gaze met his, calm yet penetrating. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she let him stew in the realization of his error. Marcus shifted on his feet, unsure of how to respond. He wanted to apologize, but he wasn't even sure what he had done wrong. Finally, she spoke, her voice smooth but commanding. "You assumed my role, human. That can be dangerous." There was no anger in her tone, only curiosity. "Yet you helped others when you saw the danger. You acted without knowing the truth." Marcus swallowed hard. I didn't know. I just wanted to help. I didn't mean—" Liara raised a hand to stop him. "Calm yourself. You may have underestimated me, but your actions show something interesting. Courage, honesty, and resourcefulness. These are rare qualities, even among humans." Marcus's relief was almost palpable. He nodded slowly, trying to meet her gaze. I didn't mean any disrespect. I just assumed—" Liara let a small smile touch her lips. It was almost imperceptible, but Marcus noticed. "Assumptions can be dangerous," she said softly, "but sometimes they reveal truths about the person making them." The hum of the spaceport returned to normal, but Marcus could barely focus on the surrounding chaos. His mind was filled with questions. Who was she, really? What was her role here? Why had she allowed him to speak to her so freely? And most importantly, what did this mean for the rest of his mission? Before he could ask, Liara turned slightly and gestured toward the cargo ship. "You will need assistance to complete your task. Follow me. We will ensure the systems are restored." Marcus hesitated for only a moment before following. Every step he took behind her was filled with awe and a growing sense of respect. He realized that appearances could be deceiving, and underestimating someone, especially an alien of her capabilities, could have serious consequences. As they approached the ship, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his adventure had just begun. The spaceport, the cargo ship, and even the aliens around him suddenly felt smaller in comparison to the presence of Liara. He had thought he knew how this mission would go, but now everything had changed. He was no longer just a human engineer completing a job. He was someone walking beside a figure of power, intelligence, and mystery. Liara moved to the ship with effortless grace, placing her hands on the hull and scanning the systems. Marcus watched, fascinated, as she interacted with the ship's technology. It was unlike anything he had seen before, advanced yet intuitive, blending alien engineering with some form of organic understanding. Can you do that?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. Liara glanced at him, one eyebrow slightly raised. "Do you mean manipulate a ship's systems without touching the interface?" she asked. Marcus nodded. She chuckled softly, a sound that was both musical and commanding. "It is a skill," she said. "One I was trained in. But perhaps you have your own skills to offer, human. Let us see what you can do." Marcus squared his shoulders. Despite his initial embarrassment, he felt a surge of determination. If she expected him to perform, he would not fail. He had faced difficult systems before, and he could do it again. As they worked together side by side, Marcus realized something important. Liara was not just an alien leader, she was a teacher, a test, and a challenge all at once. And Marcus, whether he wanted to or not, was about to discover just how far he could rise when faced with the extraordinary. The first part of their partnership had begun, and Marcus could feel that the days ahead would be filled with surprises, challenges, and lessons he had never imagined. Marcus followed Liara as she moved toward the ship, her presence commanding the attention of nearby workers without her needing to speak. Each step she took seemed purposeful, precise, and filled with quiet authority. Marcus felt both awe and nervousness. He had underestimated her before, and he knew now that misjudging her again could be dangerous. Liara reached the ship and placed her hands on the hull, her fingers tracing lines of energy and metal that Marcus couldn't even see. The ship responded almost immediately, lights flickering in a sequence he couldn't comprehend. Marcus watched, fascinated, as she worked silently, adjusting, repairing, and calibrating systems that looked completely alien to him. "You see," she said without turning to him, "this ship is like a living organism. It senses those who understand it and those who do not." Marcus stepped forward, trying to imitate her movements. "And I'm not one of the ones it senses?" Liara finally looked at him, one corner of her mouth lifting slightly. "Not yet. But perhaps you will be. Do you want to learn?" He hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Yes. I want to do this right." For the next hour, Liara guided him carefully, showing him how to access the ship's systems, how to understand its subtle responses, and how to anticipate problems before they became dangerous. Marcus realized that while he had experience with human technology, alien technology required a different kind of thinking, more intuitive, more connected. He struggled at first, making small mistakes, but Liara's patience and quiet corrections kept him focused. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and a deep, resonant warning echoed in the cargo hold. Marcus froze for a moment, unsure what had triggered it. Liara's eyes narrowed, and she moved with lightning speed toward the source. "Human," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Stay close. Follow my lead, and do exactly as I say." They arrived at the cargo hold to find several crates of volatile material had become unstable due to a sudden spike in energy from the ship's engines. Sparks flew, and smoke began to fill the area. Marcus's heart raced, but Liara remained calm, assessing the situation with precision. "Move the crates that are safe to the other side," she commanded, "and stabilize the rest with the containment units. I will handle the core." Marcus hurried to follow her instructions, careful not to make a mistake. He lifted crates with trembling hands, guided by Liara's calm voice and precise instructions. He realized that she was not just a leader or a worker, she was a strategist, a warrior, and someone who could remain composed under extreme pressure. Liara's hands moved over the core, adjusting energy flows with a combination of skill and intuition. Marcus watched in awe as she manipulated the system, preventing what could have been a catastrophic explosion. Within minutes, the danger was under control, and the alarm stopped. Smoke dissipated, and the ship hummed steadily once again. Marcus exhaled deeply, realizing how close they had come to disaster. I didn't think we could fix it," he admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. Liara turned to him, her eyes softening slightly. "You helped? That counts for something. Courage is not the absence of fear, human. It is the ability to act despite it." He nodded, absorbing her words. For the first time, he began to understand the kind of person Liara truly was. She was not only powerful and intelligent, but also wise. Her strength was not just in her abilities, but in her mind, her judgment, and her calmness under pressure. After stabilizing the ship, Liara led Marcus to a quieter area of the port. The crowd of workers and travelers moved past them, unaware of the bond forming between the two. Marcus felt both nervous and excited. Nervous because he had no idea what her intentions were, and excited because he sensed he was learning something important, something beyond mere technology. "You have potential, Marcus," Liara said after a moment of silence. "Not many humans survive more than a few minutes in a situation like that without panicking. You acted. That matters." "I didn't do much compared to you," Marcus said humbly, still processing the events. "You did more than you realize," she replied. "Strength alone is not enough. Courage, intelligence, and adaptability are what makes someone valuable. Remember that." Marcus felt a surge of pride. He had always been confident in his abilities, but being recognized by someone like Liara was unlike anything he had experienced. He wanted to impress her further, to prove that he could rise to her level, even if only in part. As they continued toward the ship, a sudden commotion broke out near the main docking area. Several heavily armed rogue aliens had entered the port, clearly seeking to cause trouble. They moved quickly, attempting to steal valuable cargo and intimidate the workers. Marcus froze for a split second, but Liara's hand on his shoulder snapped him into action. "Stay close," she said, her voice firm. "Do not intervene unless I give the signal. Watch and learn." Marcus watched as Liara moved with unmatched precision. She disarmed one of the rogue aliens, using their own weapon against them without a single mistake. Her movements were fluid, efficient, and deadly. Within moments, the rogue group realized they were no match for her and attempted to retreat. Marcus knew he could not simply stand by. Drawing on what he had learned in the past hour, he coordinated with nearby workers to block escape routes and secure the stolen cargo. Liara glanced at him, impressed. "You are learning quickly," she said quietly. Together they forced the rogue aliens to surrender to port security. The workers cheered, though most had no idea of the true power behind the calm, violet-eyed woman in the hoodie or the human who had acted with courage and intelligence. When the commotion settled, Liara turned to Marcus, her expression serious. "Do you understand now why appearances can be deceiving?" Marcus nodded. "Yes. I will never assume anything about someone again. I I understand now. She studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. Good. That understanding will serve you well. Humans are underestimated far too often. You acted with bravery and logic. That combination is rare, and it is what allows species like yours to survive and thrive among the stars. Marcus felt a swell of pride and relief. He had begun the mission thinking he was only here to repair a ship, but now he realized it was so much more. He was learning from someone extraordinary, someone he could admire and respect, and perhaps even trust as an ally. As the sun, or what passed for the sun on this planet, began to set, casting long shadows across the bustling port, Liara placed her hand lightly on Marcus's shoulder. You have proven yourself today, human. Not just to me, but to yourself. Do not forget this feeling, and do not forget that courage, honesty, and intelligence can open doors no one expects. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had grown in ways he could not yet measure, and he knew the days ahead would challenge him even more. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready to meet those challenges side by side with someone who was both extraordinary and patient enough to guide him. Liara turned, gesturing toward the ship. Come, we have work to do, and this ship will not repair itself, but do not worry, human. Together we can handle anything. Marcus followed her, feeling a mix of excitement and determination. The spaceport seemed smaller now, less intimidating. As if the presence of Liara and the bond they were forming gave him strength. He realized that humans, though often underestimated, had the capacity to rise to challenges far greater than they imagined, especially when paired with allies who could guide them. As they worked into the evening, Marcus caught glimpses of Liara's subtle smiles, her calm focus, and her extraordinary abilities. He understood that his life had changed forever. The first day on the planet had tested him, humbled him, and inspired him all at once. He knew this was only the beginning of an adventure that would stretch across stars, danger, and discovery. He had mistook her for a simple worker, but now he knew the truth. Liara was extraordinary, and he was lucky to be in her presence. More importantly, he realized that courage, intelligence, and a willingness to learn could make even the most ordinary human rise to greatness. And Marcus was ready to prove that, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the stars began to twinkle above the spaceport, Marcus and Liara continued their work, preparing the ship for its next journey. The bond between them had been tested and strengthened in a single day of chaos and discovery. Marcus felt a quiet confidence in his heart. He had underestimated her, but he would never make that mistake again. And perhaps, just perhaps, he had earned her respect and her trust. The first day was over, but their adventure had only just begun.